Alright, how we doing everyone? This is Matt here on the Vinyl Head UK channel, and we've got another vinyl appreciation video for you guys, alright? Now, we're going back to a band that we've covered a couple of times on the channel already. The band that started heavy metal, Black Sabbath. Now, I mentioned before on my Sabotage video that a really good friend of mine, his name's Vic, he's a drummer extraordinaire. He's been a good friend of mine for about 20 years. When I started collecting vinyl, he saw a post I put out on social media and he messaged me saying, I've got some vinyl for sale. Would you be interested? So he sent me up some pictures and there was a few Sabbath records in there. And one of those I've got right here and we're going to have a look. It's an interesting one, this one. I think going to have a lot to say on this record, okay? So, right here, another one of my collection. We have Black Sabbath, Never Say Die. So this will be the third Sabbath record covered on this channel. And yeah, I think it's one that we're going to talk about for a little bit. It's an interesting record. So, this was initially released in 1978. It is the last of the Ozzy albums for that era. So the initial Sabbath era with Ozzy singing, this was the last record that they put out. Okay, and it was the last Ozzy record up until 13, the last studio album of Sabbath. And it is the last album to feature those initial four in Sabbath together. Because, of course, on 13, we didn't have Bill Ward drumming. So the last Sabbath record with Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward playing together as a four. Okay. This is a 2001 reissue. It was put out by Sanctuary. And it is the same as Sabotage that I featured, as well as another Sabbath album, which I'll come on to in a later video. They are all part of the 2001 Sanctuary reissue series. There we go. So, let's have a little look at what we got, shall we? I'll show you the artwork. So we can see Sabbath, Never Say Die. It's got the sticker down here, limited edition classic reissue on 180 gram vinyl. So just like Sabotage, it is 180. We've got some jet pilots right there. It kind of looks like a plane, but it looks like Captain America's shield right over there. On the back, now in the plane, you can see their track listing and all the usual stuff. All our production credits and whatnot are on there. So a little bit about this record. As I say, it's the last Ozzy era record. Ozzy was gone after this record and after the tour. It came from an era where there was a lot of drug and substance abuse by the band, which I think shows a little bit on the record. I'll talk about the record probably in great detail coming up, but I think that very much affected the sound. I've seen and read interviews where the heart wasn't quite in it from them, you know. I think the drugs were taking their toll. The sound is quite different to what we used to already from Sabbath records. And, you know, I think Ozzy and Tony's relationship was growing thin. Hence why we saw Ozzy go. But just before the recording started, Ozzy actually quit the band. He had enough and he quit the band. At which point they brought in Dave Walker, who, among other bands, sung briefly for Fleetwood Mac. They brought him in with the recording. I think they even did 1 or 2 gigs, not many. He wasn't with them for long at all. And at which point Ozzy actually came back and rejoined Sabbath, but he refused to sing on any of the tracks that they had written already with Dave Walker. which, you know, we end up with a track sung by Bill Ward and an instrumental. So they are two tracks that definitely came from the writing sessions with Dave Walker that stuck as they were, hence why, you know, we have an instrumental and someone else singing because Ozzy refused. And then the other tracks were rewritten. The musical parts were rewritten completely. And we got the record that we have today. It was slated to a degree when it was released because it is a very distant sounding Sabbath record. If you've listened to albums leading up to this and you know Sabbath well, you will know that Never Say Die was quite a variation of the sound that we are used to with Sabbath. There was little moments in there that, you know, kind of made us remember what Sabbath sounded like. But on the whole, it was quite an odd mix of sounds. We had orchestral kind of, not orchestral, sorry, but we had like violins in there. We had synthesizers coming in, piano. Yeah, it was a lot going on that we weren't necessarily used to with Black Sabbath itself. I think personally it's a bit of an underrated album. If we forget it's Sabbath and look at it as just a standalone metal rock album, I think it's not a bad album. There is a lot going on, but I think there's some good moments in it. I think because it's tagged on to it being Black Sabbath, and, you know, we look at Black Sabbath, we look at Paranoid, Volume 4, Sabotage, we look at those records, okay, it does pale in comparison, but as a standalone, forget it's Black Sabbath, and you just listen to this as a record, I think it's not bad. Definitely not bad. Let's look inside. We didn't look inside, did we? I showed you the front and the back with our artwork, but let's have a little look, as we always do, inside. So, it comes in this card in a sleeve, which kind of looks cool. I guess it's what looks like a rocket or something. It looks like we've stolen some blueprints from somewhere and cunningly disguised them as a sleeve for a vinyl. On the back, what looks like more blueprint plans. It's kind of different. You know, I haven't got one really like this. There we go. And then the record itself. As I say, it's 180. And the Sanctuary 2001 reissues are all similar with the vinyl itself. So we can see that we have the actual artwork on side 1, side A. And then flipping it over, we have the name of a record, track listing, Black Sabbath, and everything else involved. They're on that label. So, I'll pop it back in and we'll go through the track listing. It's definitely an interesting one. There is a lot going on. This is why I think we'll probably talk about it at a bit of length on the tracks themselves to really discuss what's going on. As always, I don't want it to be a review. You can review it yourselves or Google or whatever. But I like to talk about the tracks and what they sound like to me. Okay, so track listing. We have side 1, Never Say Die, Johnny Blade, Junior's Eyes, and A Hard Road. Side 2, Shockwave, Air Dance, Over to You, Breakout, and Swinging the Chain. So that's our tracks. We have 9 altogether on this record. So, shall we get into it? Shall we look at the tracks and discuss these 9 tracks? So, Never Say Die, I think, is a good solid opener to the record. It's not as dark as some other Sabbath, definitely not as dark and doomy as other Sabbath tracks, definitely opening tracks. But I think it's a solid, catchy, hard rock track. I think Ozzy's vocals are pretty good on it. It's not the worst opening track on any record by any stretch of the imagination. Johnny Blade is, you've got this synthesizer at the start, which is a different element. And to me, Johnny Blade sounds like the soundtrack to a kids' TV show with the lyrical content and just that Johnny Blade passage and all of that. I just think, you know, if you think of 70s, 80s kids' TV show, like with a cheesy intro, and I think this song would fit completely on the top of that. Yeah, it's all I can really think of when I hear this track. Junior's Eyes. I think Ozzy's vocals are really good here. This will be a little bit of a theme as we go through this record. It has kind of a jazzy arrangement, which you don't think of Sabbath and you think of jazz, really, do you? You don't put them hand in hand. If you listen to Iron Man, or if you listen to War Pigs, or if you listen to Symptom of the Universe, or Fairies Wear Boots, none of them have any jazz arrangement or anything that would scream jazz. But there is a slight jazz arrangement on this one. I love Geezer's bass line throughout. Geezer has a really lovely bass line going through, which is a theme with Black Sabbath records. Not jazz, but good Geezer Butler bass lines. And one of those features right here in Junior's Eyes. There is quite a heavy end to the track as well. Redeem ourselves a little bit with some heavy Sabbath. A Hard Road. I think it's long. I think it plods. I think, again, we pick out Geezer's bass line throughout, which again is a strong point. But other than that, I think it just plods and plods, and it's a bit long for my liking. I don't feel it really goes anywhere. It is actually, here's a fun fact. I know you like your fun facts. This is probably the only recorded song that I can think of, if I'm wrong, tell me, that Tony Iommi sings on. He does backing vocals on this one. I don't think there's many tracks that you'll ever hear Tony Iommi do backing vocals on. So, a bit of a rare one there for you. We go on to Shockwave, which has got a lovely heavy riff at the end. We go into Sabbath territory at the end of Shockwave. We hear more of what we expect from Sabbath, what we've come to know of Sabbath, that heavy riff. There aren't many heavy riffs in this. You know, I think Tony Iommi is the master of the riff. Name a guitarist who's wrote more iconic riffs, I dare ya. But there is a good riff at the end of Shockwave. It's a relief. We get to hear something heavy and pretty good. Air Dance. Now, I didn't mention before, I said who the band was on this record. So Ozzy Osbourne was on vocals, Tony Iommi guitar, Geezer Butler bass, and Bill Ward drums. We also had Don Airey come in and play keys, synthesizer, piano, all of that stuff. He is most known for playing with Deep Purple, Rainbow, various other bands throughout his career. But there is, again, a real jazz influence through this one. There is a lot of piano, and the only way I can describe this track is floaty. It floats along with that piano. If you listen to this track, I guess you'd know what I mean. But it does sort of just float. It's very dreamy. And I think that's that piano adding to it of Don Airey. We go on to Over to You, and we have more piano. We have a bit more of a doomy-ish Sabbath groove to it, but there's more piano. It's kind of like, I think, that I mentioned about the drugs and the alcohol. And I think that kind of, maybe not so much with Geezer with his bass, but I think with the others, it kind of had a knock-on effect to the ability of the music. It's kind of like Don Airey came in and thought, you know, those four are kind of in a bad spot. I'm going to come in and steal the show, you know. And his piano just, over these two tracks, definitely takes over. A little bit self-indulgent, it feels. But yeah, there is that doomy Sabbath groove to it. But yes, a lot of piano once again from this one. We go into Breakout. How to describe Breakout? Imagine everything you know about Sabbath and throw it away. It has the brass arrangements. It definitely has a big jazz feel. It has a saxophone lead and Bill Ward drumming along with it all. It's like Bill Ward found these musicians randomly in Birmingham somewhere, brought them in and said, God, let's just jam something out and record it and stick it on the record. So it's an instrumental. Ozzy's not singing on this one at all. Ozzy's last vocal moment was on Over to You. After that, Ozzy's left the building, to be honest. But yeah, it's this brass, jazz, saxophone, just piece of music that you wouldn't think is ever Black Sabbath, but there it is, it's sat on there. And then we close with Swinging the Chain, which is Bill Ward on vocals. And some people hated it. I kind of like it. He's not the best singer you'll ever hear in your life, but I like his vocals. And there's a turn on the song where we get this really cool heavy riff. And I think that's actually one of the standout moments on the album for me. That riff near the end is a really cool riff and it just turns the song. And I do like his vocals. I mean, Ozzy back in the day, he could sing. I've spoke before about him not being quite the vocalist he once was these days, but he's a great singer back then. But yeah, I think Bill Ward does a pretty stellar job on it. So Never Say Die is a funny album. There is lots of highs and lows. There's a lot going on it. Production, you know, we'll speak about how it sounds, but the production is kind of a little bit all over the place. I think maybe that has something to do with it being a little rushed. I know they were writing material during the day and then having to record it at night. Obviously all the drugs played a part, but the production is a little bit odd, which shows through on this pressing anyway. Yeah, can't really change the production too much. And it seems like near enough every track has a fade out, which, you know, maybe they couldn't come up with suitable ends to these tracks, but there's a lot of fade outs. If you're a fan of fading out, this is the album for you, shall we say. So, sound-wise for the actual vinyl, again, just like Sabotage, because it's a 2001 Sanctuary reissue, it sounds good. The production will hamper the sound a little bit. Not hamper it as in make the vinyl sound worse or better, but your production will make it sound a little odd. Definitely. Because of what I've discussed earlier. But on the whole, it doesn't sound bad. There is clear separation on the instruments, which again I've talked about with Geezer's bass. I think it's critical that we get some separation so we can follow Geezer's bass lines, because he is incredible, a machine on that bass guitar, and he plays some lovely, lovely bass parts, as I say, on Junior's Eyes and A Long Road, definitely. A Hard Road, definitely. Really, really nice solid bass lines, and those two tracks definitely stand out for me with his work. But yeah, it's not bad sounding at all. I think the dynamics are good, the sound separation is good. It was in good nick. There's a little bit of surface noise that will soon disappear with a good clean. I got to remember that this is 20 years this pressing's been about. It's had owners before me, maybe a couple. They've looked after it pretty well. I mean, the actual sleeve is in very good nick. There's no bumps or scratches or tears or anything. It's in really good nick. It's still got the original sticker down here, which all of the Sanctuary 2001 reissues have. It's in slightly better nick than my Sabotage record. But on the whole, yes, an odd Sabbath record that many people didn't like, but I think it's kind of underrated. We had to wait a long time for Ozzy to be back with Sabbath doing new material with 13. But that one was worth the wait, definitely. But I think if you ignore the fact that it is a Sabbath record and enjoy it for the music that it is, I don't think you'll be too disappointed all that much. And it's a pretty solid vinyl reissue. There's, I imagine, worse reissues out there with this one, but pretty solid on the whole. So we have the last studio album with the first sort of Mark I lineup of Black Sabbath with Ozzy. Never Say Die. Go and check it out. As always, subscribe, smash that like button, hit the bell for all the notifications that you need on my content. We've got lots of videos coming up for you guys, plenty more vinyl. I'm going to have to start buying more in. Am I complaining? Absolutely not. I'm going to grow this lovely big library and hopefully continue sharing it with you guys. Drop some comments if you've got this reissue or you're looking to get it or anything at all. Drop some comments. Let's have a chat. We're all fans of this music. Let's have a chat about it. Let's enjoy ourselves. But until next time, go and buy vinyl. Go and listen to vinyl. Black Sabbath rule. I'll see you later.